Good morning students. Today we are going to learn about status of women in India through the ages. Generally, human society is constantly changing with addition, assimilation and omission from within and outside. Women constitute half of the population. This is imperative to have a historical understanding of status of women through the ages. What are the ages? First one is ancient age and middle age. Today we are going to learn about during the ancient period and middle period, what are the status of women in these ages.
Status of women in India through ages. The position of women was not uniform in all periods with regional variation. In ancient India, particularly early Vedic period, women enjoyed equal rights. But with the passage of time, their status in the society found deteriorated as a result of frequent foreign invasions. They were subject to subjugations and subordination. They were new social practices, customs, system, and were crept into the society in turn, put the limitations and restrictions on the liberty of women. Women played an important part in Indian freedom struggle. Until independence, there was no radical changes in the status of women. In independent India, last few decades have witnessed the all-round development of women. Women are now making their presence felt in the every walk of life. Socio-religious reformers. During the British Raj, many social religious reformers like Rajaram Mohan Rai, Dayananda Saraswati, Keshav Chandra Sen, Aishwarya Chandra Vidyasagar, Pandit Ramabai, Dr. Muthulakshmi Ammayar, Jyotiba Roy Phule, Periyar EVR and Dharmabal were the prominent leaders who fought for the upliftment of women. Rajaram Mohan Roy's effort led to abolition of Sati in 1829. Vidyasagar's crusade for the improvement in the conditions of widows led to the passing of Widow Remarriage Act in 1856. The reformers rightly realized that female education as an emancipating agent in eradicating social evils. So they started girls' school in various parts of the country, which brought significant change in the lives of women. The position of women in ancient period. In ancient times, the women were considered with respect and dignity. During the period, there were women righteous and they were held in high esteem. In royal household, women were given respect and even rendered as significant contribution in the making of decisions in the administrative functions. They were made aware in terms of all areas and played an important part in politics as well. Whereas among the economically weaker section of society, birth of girl child was not appreciated and reference was given to male children. The main areas that have been taken into account this research paper include women's positions in ancient India, position of women in the Hindu Dharma, concept of female infanticide and female foeticide in ancient India, male ratio, adverse female ratio, ancient women and education, ancient women and politics. Position of women in Vedic period. During later Vedic age witnessed a transitional development in the status of women, restricting her role in the social life except in the performance of religious sacrifices. Her social and political freedom was restricted. Sati became popular during the later Vedic period, where the widows either chose for themselves or were forced to jump into the fire of their husband. The patriarchal system became rigid. Women were denied to study Vedic scriptures. According to one view, women during Vedic period occupied an exalted positions, and they enjoyed fair amount of personal freedom and equal rights with men. At least 20 women composed of Rig Vedic hymns, Gargi and Maitreyi was leading philosophers of this time. The position of women in medieval period. The position of women in the society further deteriorated during the medieval period, and they suffered from many social evils such as sati, child marriage, female infanticide and slavery. Normally, monogamy was in practice, but among the rich polygamy was prevalent. Sati was practiced particularly among the royal and upper strata of the society. Widow remarriage was the rare. Devadasi system was in practice in some parts of India. Among the Rajputs of Rajasthan, the Jauhar was practiced. The conditions of widow become miserable during the medieval period. But we don't ignore the fact that Mughal rule Akbar attempted to abolish sati. In fact, very little attention was paid to female education. Jauhar refers to the practice collectively voluntary immolations by wives and daughters of defeated Rajput warriors in order to avoid capture and dishonor. Women education during medieval period. During medieval times, women's education was not completely ignored. Through the regular separate schools seems to have existed. Female education was informal. Girls usually had their lessons from their parents in their childhood. The rich appointed tutors to teach their daughters at home. The daughters of Rajput chiefs and zamindars study literature and philosophy. In spite general determination, we can find some exception. Razia Sultana, Queen Durgavati, Chand Bibi, Nur Jahan, Jahanara, Jijabai and Mirabai. During this time, women's education was not priority as women were believed in to be intellectually inferior. Affluent women were required to have some literacy during the Middle Ages, but their learning was intended only to prepare them for being respectable wives and mothers. Thank you, students.